All right, I'll kick things off as these guys are getting set up here. So we're here to talk about SEO. The name of the session, what are we doing here? SEO success strategies for IYPs. I guess that's what we're calling it. So SEO is obviously very important given the amount of traffic that IYPs are getting from search engines. That's something that we explored yesterday to some degree. And if you think about it, a lot of listings content and IYP content is somewhat naturally kind of SEO friendly, but at the same time, there are a lot of people that feel that the industry hasn't been as effective as it should be in kind of closing the loop with SEO strategies. And some of that comes down to the kind of the category-based taxonomy that, while that makes sense for kind of leafing through a print book, isn't as conducive to the way people search, which is more keyword driven. And that's nothing new. That's kind of at a basic level. We're going to get into some of the dynamics of that. There are also some things that IYPs are separately integrating that have a lot of good SEO implications, such as reviews and video and other kind of sources of content. And that's kind of, that's part of it. This whole discussion is going to kind of happen on two levels, really. One is how well IYPs have optimized their own domains and basically improved their own kind of search rankings and attracted traffic. But also, a theme that's kind of been central over the past 2 days is, evolving the sales force. And part of that is how effective publishers have been with reselling search marketing services. And there are a lot of well-known challenges that come with that, such as being effective at low budget levels, automation, and still preserving some margin and reducing churn, which is of course a challenge as well. So there are kind of two levels to this discussion, and we'll kind of get there as we go. And then what we're going to do also is, towards the end, save some time for a site clinic format where we're going to have some brave audience members hopefully volunteer their sites as kind of a subject for us to walk through and essentially coach you through some things you could be doing more effectively SEO-wise with some of these SEO experts on stage. And we're hoping that can be something that is valuable to you. Think of it as a free SEO lesson and actionable items that you can take to your product teams on Monday. And to spur that along, we'll also be giving some prizes to whoever bravely volunteers. So first, we don't have presentations. We're going to really save a lot of this time for digging into some of these issues. But first, I'm going to have each of you guys just kind of introduce yourselves, your companies, any kind of other points about the state of the industry that you want to kind of underscore at the front end of this discussion. And then we'll launch right into it. So why don't we start here? Steve, go for it.
So I'm Steve Espinosa, VP of Innovation at eLocal Listing. Quick elevator pitch, we get online visibility for small businesses completely through SEO. We don't dabble into SEM arbitrage or any pay-per-click or marking any of that up. We're strictly driven through SEO-based tactics.
Andrew Shotland, the proprietor of Local SEO Guide, the fabulous local search blog and search engine optimization consulting company, specialized in local search, and also monetization of local search sites as well.
Todd Renard, Web Visible, Senior Director of Product Management and Marketing. For those of you who don't know Web Visible, we've been in the SEM business for about 8 years. Managing and optimizing search campaigns for small and medium-sized businesses, primarily sold through reseller partners and direct channels.
My name is Sean Morrow. I'm VP Marketing and Biz Dev for My Virtual Paper. I'm actually standing in for Manoj Verma today. My Virtual Paper actually works with publishers, directories, taking basically any print-ready content and putting it online in a search engine-friendly format. Basically providing new products, often in kind of a bundle type service that effectively drives leads and traffic from search engines.
Thank you. So why don't we start kind of on a basic level. Andrew, I'll ask you the first question because you're kind of an SEO practitioner and also an industry watcher, expert, ninja.
Gadfly.
Gadfly. I was going to say ninja. Does that work?
No, Gadfly.
Okay. Gadfly it is. So, I think the way you explained it to me a while back when we were having a discussion is that some of the ways where publishers or IYPs haven't been as effective with SEO is if you think of it how the human brain works and how you think when you're doing a search engine query. Say you're looking for a Chinese restaurant, you would look for a Chinese restaurant rather than the logical flow that goes restaurant-Chinese. So using that as kind of a baseline for maybe some of what I mentioned earlier, the taxonomies that may be a little bit off with IYPs. That's kind of been a concept that's been around for a little while. It's nothing new, but has that changed over time, or is the industry doing any better, or what are some of the kind of main sticking points for you right now when you look at the industry and what it's doing wrong?
So I think the taxonomy issues seem to be slowly but surely getting cleared away from a lot of the bigger local search sites because everyone kind of gets that now. But I think what happens is that you might solve that issue. So now you have Chinese restaurants instead of restaurants-Chinese as a category on your site. But there's a whole other layer of searching that happens that in aggregate equals much more search volume than, say, that one phrase. So things like tags and snippets from reviews and stuff are kind of the next level of that. So if I were you and I had this taxonomy issue, I definitely want to solve it, but I wouldn't look at solving that as like my silver bullet.
Mm-hmm. So who in your mind or anyone else on the panel is kind of doing it right, or who do you admire in the industry for their kind of SEO chops in the local space?
So I've always been a big fan of Yellowbot's SEO. I don't think they're like a 10 million visitor site yet, but they've done some kind of small things that, from an SEO point of view, are kind of large. Like they basically got rid of the concept of a hierarchy of categories. I think every category on their site is kind of a tag. So there's not this like click on autos and then get 50 auto categories. It's just all the same level, and that makes a difference. The
way that Aaron Silverstein told it to me a few years ago when I first talked to him about it was that they took all their categories and put them against the wall and shot them.
Yeah, in a way, yeah. And so the more you can kind of get out of this, like, oh, we're married to our categories, and the more you can get into, we just need to have a lot of interesting keywords in our site that are available at all different sections of our site. I think the better you'll be.
Now, is that so deep rooted though in the way the products currently are that it's like a teardown, or is that something that's something that is attainable to start to evolve these products?
I think it totally depends on your company and your website where it's at in its sort of lifespan. Typically. When I do SEO engagements with big companies, with big websites, it often entails re-architecting their website. And you can do all these sort of quick fixes, like you could change, I don't know how quick it is to change restaurants-Chinese to Chinese restaurants, and that can get you some traction. But if you're just doing cosmetic fixes, you're really not fixing the issue. You're kind of just glossing over it a bit. And it's always easier because it's faster and cheaper, but oftentimes, a good SEO plan involves re-architecting your website.
Any other thoughts? Who's doing it right?
Like Andrew said, those guys are doing it the best. Other than that, you know who's doing really good and kind of like they're doing it halfway good is Yahoo Local. They're like really good at what they're doing. They're getting tons of traffic from Google. They have some pretty good architecture. They place their content in the right places to get the crawlers to, dig deep into the listing level. They have lots and lots of tags. They're really good at keeping the crawlers coming back for more fresh content, where they place that content, and how it's very strategic. I've talked to them where they place the content, simply to get the Google bot to come follow that content and dig deeper into there. So now they have a new content. They know this place stays open until 10 p.m. Right, and it has Wi-Fi. How they go about adding that, is it a tag or is it simply content on that listing page? Do they create a new city, city plus category page for restaurants with Wi-Fi in Orlando? They're very strategic with that, and they do a really good job with that.
Any thoughts?
Yeah, I would just say that I think that there's, like you cite these examples as being companies that are kind of internet focused. Yahoo is an internet company. I think the challenge in the directory space is understanding that we're not reproducing the book experience online anymore. And this is when Andrew talks about it being married to a category or to a category type hierarchy. I think that this describes the overall challenge that a directory has at this stage. A consumer is now used to going to Google to search for his products and his services. They're used to using, I'd say, localized keywords against an address or a street name or a zip code or something like that. We're talking to some directories, one of the larger players in the US said last fall iPod was the #1 search query on their directory site, and they couldn't provide a proper match to the merchant. So it's kind of figuring out how to break away from that legacy type business and appreciating that the consumer who goes to your site, if it's a destination site for information, needs to be able to search in the same way that they're already now used to searching in a search engine.
Yeah, let me add one thing to that, which is, well, I saw this infomercial the other day, one of those Ron Popeil grill master things, and their tagline was "set it and forget it," and it just stuck with me because I think about IYPs and the content, you know, the rich content that's on the site, but it's not an event. You know, you don't just update the content once a year. So keeping that content fresh and adding to it on whatever frequency is that you can, but as frequently as possible, helps from an SEO standpoint and from a usability standpoint. Yelp is doing a good job with user reviews. Other IYPs are adding user reviews and those kinds of things, but engaging the community to add to those things is pretty critical.